But welcome, Happy New Year. I hope everyone's had a really good start to 2025 or in. Um, we're really pleased to be, it's a busy year for All In. We've got the next All In census on March the 12th, which we'll tell you a bit about later on. But we're really excited to kick off the year with the latest in these All In sessions about how to bring the actions to life so you can implement them in your business. And so today we're looking at disability, doing a deeper dive on the latest action. And this is actually the kind of, I guess, the third iteration. We've evolved this since 2021 when we launched with, feels like, I mean, ages and ages ago and kind of slightly out of touch that we were asking people to make sure that their website was as accessible as possible. It just feels like that's kind of an obvious thing to have done. And luckily, so many businesses, it's just a given. But yeah, we're delighted to talk about the new action today and hear from some fantastic speakers who can just help you with sort of tips and tricks and some tangible anecdotal evidence about how to do this in your business. So the format is usually me doing my little welcome, handing over to Itty, which I'm going to do now just to tell you a bit more about the action. And then we're going to hear from Dan Wilkes, Director at Krados, with the kind of deeper dive on the data that's relevant for disability. So and then I'll tell you a bit more about our speakers and we'll hear from them. So over to you, Itty.
Thanks, Sharon, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, just a gentle recap over the current All-in Action Plan, of which has been updated in 2024. So we now have 8 actions, and this action plan has obviously changed over the years, and we hope to keep continuing to update it in line with industry feedback and the results from recent census surveys as well. So the 8 actions overall, but obviously today we are focusing on the action 2, which is to ask staff or visitors if they have any accessibility needs. And so this is something that kind of brings together both physical, digital, and other types of accessibility needs. So, for example, internally asking your staff, this could be done via new starter paperwork or something like employee surveys. And externally, this could be for clients or any kind of visitors to your building. You could put in a little note that in your email signature that asks them to let you know of any accessibility needs. Things like having posters in your office as well, just to make sure that there's a constant kind of proactive ask of the people that are in and around your building and your offices or engaging with you online to keep communicating and sharing their access needs and allow them to kind of have a platform to do that in order to feel comfortable and feel safer and whatever else they need. So that's the action that we're going to focus on today, but this is one of 8 actions in the action plan that hopefully you're all aware of, and if you're an all-in champion, that you're already implementing within your businesses. So now I'm just going to hand over to Dan to take us through some of the results of the recent census. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Itty. So yeah, the last census was in 2023, as you know. I'm just going to give you a recap of the kind of the core data points that were relevant to disability. Great. So just a quick recap on the census in 2023. So we got almost 19,000 responses from across industry, which is obviously an absolutely phenomenal number. We've worked out that equates to around £300,000 worth of industry's time in terms of filling it in. It's the largest response for our industry, and it's also the largest kind of D&I survey of its kind across any industry in the UK. And we actually increased the number of responses from 2021, where it was around 16,000, which again is a really good indication of kind of industry's support and engagement with the survey. As you know, the next one is on March 12th, so make sure everyone's got that in their diary and you promote it throughout your organisations and obviously complete it yourselves. So in terms of disability, we have 2 key measures in the census. There's the Equality Act definition. So that's whether someone has any physical or mental health condition expected to last more than 12 months, that reduces or affects your ability to carry out day-to-day activities. So that's one question that we ask in that way. And then we also have a self-defined question where we ask people whether they consider themselves to be disabled. And as you'll see on this next slide, very different numbers equate to those. So the Equality Act definition, 11% of the all-in census respondents were defined as disabled according to that Disability Act definition. And that fell to 3% of people that actually self-defined as disabled. So quite a big difference there between the two definitions, and very interesting nuances in that. Looking at the Equality Act definition in C-suite, it fell from 11% across the whole all-in census response to just 5% in C-suite. So I don't think anybody was surprised to hear that there's this drop-off in representation at the highest levels of businesses. And when we compare it to the UK working population, again, this is Equality Act definition, 17% is the average across businesses in the UK. So again, it looks like the advertising industry is coming in under what is the UK average. So there's a lot of things that we need to work on in terms of representation that really come through in just those headline findings there. Now, if we look at the different sort of health conditions that were reported, we've got the Disability Act defined group on the left and the self-defined group on the right. I mean, they broadly align, they're fairly similar. One kind of interesting difference is neurodiversity comes through very strongly in the self-defined group. Over half of that group report a neurodiversity condition. This does show any condition reported, so this will include multiple conditions. So yeah, there might be a combination of these in an individual that's showing up in these numbers. But that just shows the kind of the breadth of conditions that people are experiencing in the industry. And in both areas, stress and anxiety, mental health conditions, and neurodiversity are affecting the highest numbers within these two groups. So awareness and support, we asked, this is the Disability Act defined group that this numbers refer to, and we asked whether their company is aware of their disability. 61% said yes, so there's a really big group there, 39%, that their company isn't even aware that they have a Disability Act defined condition. When we asked people whether their company was supported, the vast majority are very supportive. Well, not the vast majority, the majority are very supportive, 53%. So obviously that is a positive. Another 20% there are supportive but could do more. And obviously this question is just of those where the company is aware of the disability. And we've got 4% unsupportive and 13% where there's kind of neither supportive or unsupportive. So room for improvement there. I think it'd be good to turn more into very supportive. But generally, not the worst kind of response from companies when they are aware. We asked lots of questions about company culture and workplace experience. I think we've got about 50 measures, and unfortunately, response from disabled people is generally much more negative than the all-in average. I've just pulled out a few kind of key points here. So yeah, just picking up on the company culture measures, I say we've got around 40 or 50 of these in total, and these are just kind of some of the key points here. So we've got on the left, we've got the Equality Act EA disabled there. We've got the self-defined disabled group in the middle, and then the all-in average for the total response in the light blue on the right. Generally, the two groups, different defined groups of disability are fairly similar, actually. The self-defined group tends to be a little bit more having a worse experience or a more negative response generally, but they are the kind of same trend. So feeling emotionally and socially supported at work, so that's lower for both groups than the all-in average. I sometimes feel left out at work, 39% agree to that compared to 26% in the all-in average. So again, significantly higher levels reporting being left out. a lack of kind of people in senior leadership positions, a lack of role models for disabled people. Again, just 45% of the self-defined group saying that they see people similar to themselves in leadership positions. And I consistently feel anxious in my job, 41% and 35%, which again is significantly higher than the all-in average there, just flagging how difficult it is for, or more difficult it can be for people to just to do their job on a day-to-day basis. Now, workplace experience, these are all things that people have experienced in the last 12 months of work. So this is all recent experiences that people are having. Again, unfairly spoken over or not listened to in meetings, around 10% percentage point higher for disabled people, undervalued compared to colleagues of equal competence, again, around 10 percentage point higher for disabled people. And then some getting into some more serious kind of behaviors here. So made to feel uncomfortable in the workplace, again, much higher than the all-in average. Bullied or undermined in any way, again, almost double the all-in average there for disabled people. And then discrimination based on disability. And this is one where the self-defined group does differ significantly from the Equality Act defined group. And you've got, almost 1 in 5 there, 19% of self-defined disabled people that have experienced discrimination based on their disability in the last 12 months in the workplace. So that's a very high proportion there. Finally, we asked people how likely they are to leave the industry due to a lack of inclusion or discrimination, and 16% of disabled people said that they were likely to leave the industry for that reason. That was down slightly from 2021 when it was 19%. So, there seems to be some positive movement on that, but still way too many reporting that figure. And I think that is it. Yeah. As Sharon says, they'll be circulating these afterwards. And if you have any follow-up questions, then please do come back to me and I can give you more details.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Dan. So anyway, now, as I mentioned, we've got some amazing speakers to sort of walk us through this on a day-to-day basis. First of all, I'd love to come to Jackie. We're going to talk a bit about her business and what she's seeing, particularly sort of post-pandemic in this sort of massive transformation in the way that we all work. And then we're going to speak to Sam and Asma from ITV about the brilliant work that they're doing there. So first of all, if I can come to you, Jackie, great to see you and Happy New Year. So as I mentioned, this incredible revolution in the way that we all work. I mean, I'm currently working from home. We're doing this call in a virtual setting. So there's been this huge transformation in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Tell us a little bit about Genius Within, your business, just for context. And then what have you seen in certainly the last 3, since we've been working in this new way?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to join you this morning. And incredibly insightful, interesting results from your survey. Thanks for sharing those, Dan. I'm unsurprised by some of those results, and they do reflect other surveys that we see in the workplace. So myself, my name's Jackie Wallace. I'm the CEO of Genius Within. I'm a disabled woman through both through the Equalities Act definition that you kindly provided, and also in other areas on a self-definition basis. So I've got dyslexia, dyspraxia, which sometimes is disabling. So whether you define yourself as disabled is a whole other conversation, and some health conditions that mean I am disabled through the Equalities Act as well. Genius Within is a majority disabled and neurodivergent run and owned business. We are employee owned. Our founder is ADHD woman, Dr. Nancy Doyle, and we have every neurodivergent and many disabilities represented right through our organisation through to the board level. And that's really important to us because representation at a senior level is vital. And I think some of those stats that you showed, Dan, really bear evidence to the fact that if people in senior decision-making roles aren't aware of people's experience, and sometimes policies and procedures don't follow that make those people feel included, sometimes inadvertently, and there are things that we can do. And I think that there is lots that, having worked myself for 20 years in the advertising industry before I came into this industry, I think there's plenty that can be done without breaking the bank to make people feel incredibly included. So our focus at Genius Within really is on the neurodivergent side of things. So that is often called non-visible or invisible disability. 90% of disabilities are invisible. So just because somebody doesn't look disabled doesn't mean to say that they aren't experiencing a disabling situation or feeling left out, as your stats showed. It's very interesting what's happening in the workplace at the moment. So we've got this blended environment. We've got people who are being asked to go back to work, people who are working for organisations that are 100% remote, that don't even have an office at all, and some people who are sitting across both. And obviously within the industry that we're talking to now, most of your workplaces are considered office environments. So we work in any environment, from people who are driving vans to factory workers to people in working in large engineering projects in aircraft hangars and every type of job in between. But in the workplace, we know that different types of people, regardless of disability or not, thrive and experience positivity in different environments. So your extroverts really like coming into work and talking to people, and your introverts very broadly much prefer staying at home and being allowed to get on with it. One of our non-exec directors is a self-proclaimed introvert and was very cross with us all during COVID, because he said he's been very happily working for 10 years at home, and now everyone keeps bothering him for interactive coffee breaks. And he was like, I don't need an interactive coffee break, I just need to be able to get on with my job. So we do have to be a bit mindful that what we consider to be useful for us might not be somebody else's experience. And I think the biggest thing that I start off talking to any organisation, and you've done that with your survey, is to understand what your workforce needs, because we are hardwired as human beings to think that the world experiences things the way that we do. And as that's one individual's experience, that is highly likely not to be the case. So what you think is a great idea, many other people in your organisations might think is a terrible idea. And if you don't consult with other people, you might inadvertently make a decision that actually actively causes people to feel left out, as your survey said. You know, I'm unsurprised that you've got people feeling anxious when your other stats, you know, as an output, your other stats said that they felt left out. That they didn't think that people were aware of their disability because they probably don't feel psychologically safe to share that information. And the reason they probably feel unpsychologically safe is because they can't see people in any senior roles. And, you know, the whole thing cascades. You know, this is about being honest, having, you know, good experiences where people can share and understand what it means to be a disabled person. We don't need talking down to or patronising. I don't need someone to make a decision about whether I can do a job or not. You know, being dyslexic, I can remember somebody early in my career, I tentatively said I'm dyslexic, and they said, oh right, well you know, we won't give you any of this work with the difficult writing. I'm like, well, no, I mean, don't do that to me, because that's going to really stop my ability to progress in this industry. You know, I can do that. What I'm saying to you is, perhaps don't give me a report that I have to read while I'm walking into the room, because I can't read that information, process it, and come up with anything sensible 5 minutes after I arrive. And there are very large organisations that work on briefings that happen 5 minutes before you walk in the door, and disabled people who are dyslexic will feel on the back foot from that process. And so sometimes it's a really simple understanding of what makes you feel that you can't contribute to the environment properly, and in a way that allows you to give your best intelligence to that business, so that we can all be productive and do the thing that we want to do. Because if you've got 40% of people feeling that they can't disclose, their productivity is going to be lower. It just is. So, you know, as a business who employs a lot of people, your differentiator is going to be how good you are in what you deliver, and that's going to rely on people's productivity, and that is underpinned by all of these stats. So
are there any in the work that you do, before we move on to Sam and Asma, and I'm going to come back to you as well when we open up the conversation, because I've got a question for all of you, but any sort of tips and tricks, if you like, that people can take away today, just
so
to make that.
there's a lovely piece of research I'm going to send to you all afterwards. So what I would say is we looked at what is helpful in terms of adjustment. So it's boil it down to what can you do in the workplace. And this will be good news to those of you who are budget holders. The most useful pieces of adjustments are those that are free. So this requires people to have a flexible mindset. So I'm talking about adapting work rules that you've applied in a way that is you're conscious of your colleague's ability to do things. So my ADHD colleague loves writing notes in meetings. It keeps her engaged and supportive. So she always does that. I can do them, but it takes me a bit longer and there's probably more mistakes. So we've decided between ourselves that I don't do them and she does do them. Can we change the intensity of the lighting where we are? So when I'm at home, I can do that myself. When I'm in the office, I can't. Can we zone our office environments? Can I take frequent breaks? So we work with call centres quite a lot where they have defined numbers of calls, and they're like, well, it's really unfair because disabled people want more breaks. And it's like, they don't want more breaks. What they'd like is some control over how often they take that break. So they don't perhaps want 20 minutes all in one chunk. They'd quite like 2 10 minutes or 4 5 minutes, because actually it's about being able to move their bones and come away and perhaps get a drink or be able to just have a rest from the screen momentarily. So it's about thinking about things that might be useful, and flexibility is the key. One size doesn't fit all. Have a flexible mindset. Offer different options for things for people to take what they need. And if you can offer it to everybody, you also take away this need for people to even hand raise, because you've got an issue, as most businesses do, with disclosure. So just give people the opportunity to choose the way that they would like to work best without having to tell you that they are disabled if it's not immediately obvious, because they might not feel safe to do so. And then if they don't want to tell you and they are unproductive, you're going to have issues with stress and mental health issues as well in the business. So flexibility and offering multiple options would be my top line takeaway.
Brilliant.
Across everything.
Jackie, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I know everyone on the call is going to be following up with you to get more of your support and your insight, but we'll certainly, as you said, we'll be sharing. I think you've got quite a lot of resource to share afterwards.
Loads of stats. We've got
amazing
tools that we've made. I mean, I
Perfect.
can talk about this till the cows come home, but I'm shutting up now because you've got
no, I shall bring you back in momentarily, but thanks for the moment, Jackie. Brilliant. Love to bring in now Sam and Asma from ITV. Do you both want to just introduce yourselves and the roles that you have, and then I'll ask my first question.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Tatlow. I've just had an upgrade in my role, so the slide's slightly updated. But as you see on screen, I've just been promoted to the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at ITV. So leading the team in our work.
Hi, I'm Asma Abdulrahman. I'm the diversity and inclusion team apprentice. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you both for joining us today. I mean, I know you've worked with Genius Within as well, actually, so there's quite a nice synergy in the conversation. But I guess going back to this, the big transformation we've all experienced and the benefits, we all know the benefits of flexible and hybrid working. What have been the challenges for you at ITV in terms of that? I mean, because we know the benefits. Have there been any challenges, and how are you supporting particularly disabled talent across the network?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, particularly about what Jackie was just saying around kind of that flexibility and the need to kind of lean into these conversations and start kind of just thinking about actually what do individuals need in order to do their best work. One of the things, and I don't know if I'm going too far ahead, Sharon, but one of the things that we implemented a couple of years ago was the disability access passport, and that is embedded now into our processes from onboarding somebody new to the business, as well as anyone who is existing within the business. And it's just a document that's sent out to everyone who's joining the business with all of the other information with their contract, and asks a couple of really simple questions around, do you have any access requirements that we should consider? What kind of adjustments have you had before? Are there any challenges that you'd like to discuss? And it's just really, it's an open-ended way for us to enter into the conversation around what do you need, what might you need in order for us to support you to do your best work, because that's the ultimate aim, is that we want everyone both to feel like they are comfortable in the workplace and able to bring as much of themselves as they want to bring to work, but also that they're able to do their best work. So what we found was that people were feeling uncomfortable from a non-disabled line manager perspective, potentially feeling uncomfortable about starting this conversation. So it gives them a framework of how to start the conversation. But also, as a disabled person joining the business or already existing in the business, it gives them the opportunity to actually, that's the outlet for them to start the conversation. But also, they're not the ones who have to put their hand up, as Jackie said, to say, actually, I just think, can we discuss some of the adjustments that I might need, because it's already part of the process. And what we found is that colleagues have found it a really kind of safe and friendly way to enter in the conversations. And that might be just adjusted working hours so that you don't have to travel in during rush hour, maybe coming in a bit early and leaving a bit early. It may well be just switching around your break times, or it might be something more substantial, like needing some specific equipment, or sitting using a specific desk, for example. But it just enables all of us to feel much more confident about having those conversations, and that our colleagues feel supported in order to do their work.
And I love the fact that, because I know when we were developing this action, you know, and you hit the nail on the head there when you're talking about, you know, you don't want to put the onus on the disabled person to have to put their hand up and start the conversation. And also that you couldn't mandate the disclosure either, because it's, you know, so I think there's a brilliant way of getting around that by saying, you know, there's this disability passport, as you talk about. Have there been any challenges around that, or has it kind of, yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the place to be open about those, because obviously people need to know what the barriers are so that we can try and help.
Absolutely. There's always barriers around this stuff. And, you know, obviously we're a broadcaster, so we work with a lot of production teams. So we're working with lots of freelancers. So not all of our colleagues are permanent staff members. So there was the challenging situation with, well, how do we work this through with freelancers who might actually only be with us for a couple of months or a couple of weeks. So that took a bit longer for us to roll out, but actually the teams have started to roll that out over the last kind of year, I think. Culturally, it was quite challenging to embed the process. There was quite a bit of pushback from colleagues around, well, if we ask this question, are we going to get waylaid with lots of answers that we're not going to be able to manage? And my challenge to them was, well, we should be. And actually, that's the information that we need to know. And there was also a tension between who owns this and how formal is it? And I swayed on the informality, firstly because that allowed us to kind of between us in a safe space, it allowed us to kind of swerve the GDPR issue, and actually get something in place that was going to help people. So the document isn't stored centrally anywhere. It's owned by the disabled person, and it means that they then have the ownership to share it with whoever they would like to. So they don't have to share it with their line manager, they don't have to send it to HR. So it means that the ownership is for the individual, and that was important for me because I really wanted to ensure that our disabled colleagues felt empowered, and that this was their information that they were comfortable sharing with whoever they wanted and felt comfortable sharing it with. The flip side of that is that it's not centrally held, and therefore it's not formalized. So then we are having to manage how do we ensure that the adjustments that are being requested and discussed are actually being put in place and actually being followed up and being updated if they change? And so the way that we've approached that is just by constant communication throughout the business around the work that is happening across the business around accessibility, continually talking to colleagues about the existence of the passport, what it's used for, how it can be used, and the commitment for ITV to be supporting our disabled colleagues and ensuring that line managers understand their role and the responsibilities in this bit, because essentially it's their job to look after all of the colleagues that are part of their team, and this is a part of that responsibility.
And hopefully the learnings, like we've seen with so many other things, that inclusive design actually benefits pretty much everybody. So there's not just this limitation to whatever the reasonable adjustment is that doesn't currently exist, that implementation is actually going to benefit way more than the one person it's being delivered to. So have you seen examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the spot with that
We've had quite a few people come through to say, oh, actually, firstly, I'm joining ITV and this makes me feel even more excited to join because I know that you take this stuff seriously. And whether they are disabled or not, that's something that they like seeing. There have been individuals who have been working at ITV for a long time and was sent the passport as part of the kind of performance review that was sent to everybody. And as a team, as part of a team, they recognized that there was things that they actually should record it in their passport and discuss with their line manager, and it's opened out a conversation that hadn't happened before, and that meant that they were thinking about adjustments that maybe they hadn't considered before. And for other people, it meant that they were able to start thinking about, oh, well, these are some of the things that I find challenging. I don't know what the solution is or what the adjustment might be, but let's talk about it. That's what happened with you, Esma, isn't it? When you joined. So you joined ITV and you filled in the disability access passport, and then we sat down and had a conversation about it. Do you want to tell everyone about your experience using it?
I feel like it helped me because Sam is my line manager. So it helped me sort of explain to her what my requirements were. Because obviously this was my first corporate job. This was my first role after uni. So it was really hard for me to navigate being diagnosed at uni and what that looked like. Because that was more like getting extra time on your exams and your essays. So trying to translate that into a corporate setting was a lot easier because of the access passport. So being able to discuss that with Sam just allowed me to say, on certain days I might need this, or allowed me to be a lot more flexible with my needs, I think. So yeah, it was really, really useful.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And something that we kind of kept looking at as well. Like we kept kind of discussing, oh, is this working for you? Actually, now that you're working on slightly different projects, what does that look like now? So it's something that should be revisited.
It allows you to be more vocal about it as things might change in your personal circumstances, because life is not linear. So some days, like especially during the winter months, I might need a bit more support because I struggle when it's a lot darker and colder. But like during summer, I feel like it's just it really depends. Like it's substantial.
That's incredible. That sounds brilliant. It'd be great if I can bring Jackie in now as well, because I had a question for all of you, and then I'd love to open it up, conscious of time. We keep these short and sweet, but it'd be great to have sort of interaction from people on the call. One thing we've all talked about is that how do you differentiate between, there's lots of people that work in the industry now who've never worked in an office environment before the pandemic. How do you differentiate between sort of office etiquette, if you like, and because we're now back in the office and working together more frequently, and genuine reasonable adjustments? Has that been a dilemma for ITV? Do you come across it, Jackie, in your work? Free for all.
Yeah.
I love that genuine, reasonable adjustments. Like you're all lying. You're all lying. Don't really. I think you're talking about competing needs in an office environment, a shared office environment, where some people might want it dark and some people might want it really light or something like that.
Temperature, you know, the
Or
classic.
temperature.
Yeah, I've been working for decades now. It's never ever not been an issue, the temperature in an office. It used to be sort of very gender specific, but now it really isn't. And it can be literally where you are in an office. But yeah, so stuff like that, which because I mean we find it in at the AA, it's just navigating things that is just a result of all working together
Yeah.
in one shared space when you're very used to being in your own home for 3 years or 2 years,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
So yeah, I think it's about having those conversations. Like, can I just say that I absolutely love that comment and that conversation that you guys just had about the variability of the need, because some people really see this as a once and you're done, and it definitely isn't. As you said, Asma, it's on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis, and what we need does change. And we all wake up having days where we don't feel as great, and if we know our workplace can support us with a slower start or a different working pace, and when we do feel on it, we're more likely to give it our all and do that 120%. So it is a relationship between the two of you and your workplace, and it is variable. I think people can change a lot now personally in their personal working environment, to change the temperature or their lighting to suit their need. And zoned offices also help with that, with spaces. I think when we are dealing with competing need, there are people who clearly will have medical or necessary needs, and they do often sometimes need to be prioritised. So, you know, if there is somebody with a skeletal issue, that means that very cold temperatures would be significantly disabling for them and stop them moving. Then clearly you need to prioritise that as a move over someone who gets, you know, a bit chilly in the afternoon. So, you know, we do have to have that honest conversation, because nothing is perfect, including us humans. But doing our best and trying to give people solutions that could accommodate their needs works towards that in a very transparent, open way. And I just think, you know, we've got to be grown-ups about it. We've got to talk to each other, and we've got to be realistic, and we've got to do what we can when we can. And I think people appreciate that. And I think, you know, I think it's lovely that you're talking to people at ITV who've been there for years and never had this conversation, and suddenly they're opened up to, well, do you know what? Actually, I've never thought that I've got an issue with the environment, but now you mention it, actually strong lights do really give me a bit of a headache by the end of the day. And so perhaps I should be thinking about how I can work differently. So I think it's all good.
I think that's always it's always the first thing that people think about when they're asked, are you thinking about your disabled colleagues and the adjustments of, well, then we're going to get lots of requests, and it's all going to, how do we know what's true, and how do we know how are we going to manage that with all the other requests that's going to come through from other people, and how do particularly when they compete. Actually, what we're asking is for you to have a really good conversation with your colleagues and with your team, so that you can understand what they need. And fundamentally, whether someone's disabled or not, you don't want them to work in an office that's making them cold, and therefore that they don't feel like they can do their job anyway. So we want people to be able to do their best work, but it comes from, as Jackie was just saying, a really good conversation to really understand what it is that people need, and where that's coming from in terms of what's the barrier, and what is it preventing, like what how is it impacting in the workplace, and then working through that. And one of the things, so Asma's an apprentice, and one of the things she had to do for her apprentice was come up with a bit of a business plan around, and you came up with an idea, didn't you, which we're rolling out.
Yeah, so we had to come up with like a business improvement project to like improve the like organization. And the idea that I had was sort of through my lived experience of working in a corporate setting and working in an open plan office. And like I said earlier, like each day is different. So something that I struggled with was the nature of the noise level in the office, because we have 3 floors and each floor is slightly different. On certain days, one floor will have meetings at their desks, or there's loads of people in the office and they all want to have loud conversations, and it would just be really hard for me to focus. So the idea that I had was to implement just sort of quiet areas of the office to support those colleagues, but not just you know, disabled colleagues, it could be for everyone. Like it was sort of something that I was like, this could support parents or people that live in a busy household where they work from home and it's somewhere they also can't concentrate. So to come from that into the office and then have noise here as well would be just as bad. So it was just something that I thought would benefit everyone. So I worked with our like workplace services logistics team, and we're now going to roll that out hopefully this year in summer to trial it out and see people benefit from it, which they definitely will, because
Oh, fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds amazing. We've had a couple of questions about the disability passport and whether there's a sort of blank template. And I know Kira's just helpfully jumped in to say if you're a member of the Business Disability Forum, it's there. But if you're not, is there can we share that with everyone after?
There is also a version on the government website that they use,
Okay.
but we can send through a blank one of ours. I can send it through to Itty if that's helpful. So you know, it's just it's no groundbreaking thing. It's really simple, but it just kind of opens out the question. So
Yeah.
and that for the television industry, what we're also doing is we're doing a lot of accessibility work collaboratively within as part of the TV Access project. One of the things that they're about to roll out is a disability access passport as a resource that they can then that all broadcasters and producers and independent producers can make use of. So that's also coming too, but I can share with you our template.
Fantastic. So Alicia's question there was what's the purpose of the disability passport? I think we covered that earlier on, so we'll share in the follow-up a kind of paragraph on it or something. Great question though. So in the kind of couple of minutes that we've got left, has anybody else got a question they'd like to ask our guest today? If so, I don't know if anyone's able to shout out. Yes, Sandy.
Yes, hi, amazing session. Thank you. And exactly what we need right now, both me as personally with my own conversations, but in my role. Question about your experiences of return to office mandates that have happened, and we've seen lots in the press, and we've seen things in different ways, and a reaction from the employees to sort of, you know, obviously say, oh, that's change. I'm not sure I like it. I got really comfortable with how I'm working, and trying to balance the in office and at home. We might see an increase in people saying, and it's not suggesting that they're not real and true, their reasons why, and I feel this myself, but the resistance is I don't want to come into the office at all. And what is the balance between a reasonable adjustment and changing the office environment to create that collaborative work environment where we bring people back together? And what's it okay to ask, to talk about? Just love to hear your experiences in that.
Who wants to go first?
You want? I don't mind.
We're on time now as well, but if everyone's happy to stay for a few minutes, that's good for us too.
Yeah, you go ahead, Jackie.
So what I was going to say, we work with a number of different offices, organisations who are struggling with this. The underlying thing that you're trying to get to do normally in a business is productivity and performance from people. And so what I often ask from the organisation is why it's necessary to mandate for those people. So in some instances, you physically have to be in the office to do your job. Then clearly that is a reasonable request for you to make for people to come back in. For other organisations, there may be a top-down inference that people being back in the office would make for a better outcome, and that may or may not be true. We talked right at the top about introverts and extroverts and abilities of people to work in different ways. Flexibility is the key if you can do that. Most people have different types of work in their role, unless you're sitting on a factory line doing exactly the same thing 9 to 5. Most people have different functions in their role that requires them to do work in a different way. You know, quiet writing of reports versus sitting on things like this and doing presentations. And they require different environments for people to be able to perform those parts of their job to the best of their ability. And you know, we aren't employing robots, we're employing human beings so far. What we need to do is be flexible in how we allow them to do their job to the best of their ability. So my question to organisations is, what are we trying to get out of this? And with my community head on, if someone is doing their job excellently and performing brilliantly, and you see a drop off in their performance. I mean, I have a number of scary stories about very high performing people being forced into open plan offices and basically performance dropping off the edge of a cliff. Why are you pushing that person into that environment? And what is the balance between what you need as a business versus how they can work at their best? And it's often a hybrid, flexible role. Changing their work patterns to avoid rush hours was mentioned before. That's an excellent idea. Enabling someone, if you can, to let them work within their natural rhythm and flow. Flexibility and having a conversation is key. But I think understanding why you want those people to come back in, it has got to be central to how you make that decision. And mandating tends to not have a great result normally.
No. Yeah. And I think, as you say, it's role specific, isn't it? And that's the challenge for any organisation. I think there's no one size fits all. But for that,
sorry to not be able to wave my magic wand and give you a perfect answer.
So I know we're starting to lose a couple of people because I know we did say we'd finish at 9:45. But any final words from you, Asma and Sam, on that point?
No, just to say everything that Jackie said is kind of our approach. We've not mandated everyone coming back, and obviously there's differences in how people work. All of the production people working on GMB were in the office all day, every day during the pandemic, and they had no choice. So there hasn't been a mandate of coming back, but we are trying. We were a flexible working employer prior to the pandemic anyway, so that flexibility was already baked in. But on top of the question around what's the productivity, what are we actually asking people to do, what works for them, it's also about company culture. So it's not about mandating people to be in 5 days a week, but encouraging people to understand how they can work better as a team with some of those in-person touch points. And that's not about 5 days a week, but it might be 1 day a month, or having 1 day every week where everybody's in together so that you are in the space together, and really ensuring that people understand what the reason is for that and what does everybody get out of it. And there may well still be people who need the adjustments around that to either make that work for them, or that it will never work for them, and that's also fine. But it's having that flexible mindset around all of that, so that we can get the best out of people, and also to make people feel like they want to come to work, whether that is in the office or working from home, that they feel like they're part of ITV, because we have a great company culture, so we want them to be part of that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Just to quickly say, there's another end of the scale which we see a lot as well, is companies that don't have a workplace at all. So we've got young people going to the workplace, going to work, that will never go into a workplace because those companies don't have a workplace. There is no workplace for them to go to, and that has a number of problems as well. So mandating people to go into an office 5 days a week is problematic, but so is some people struggling with these environments where there is no office at all. And how do you get around those? And often those businesses are giving money allowances to individuals to go and buy spaces in a WeWork, because those people don't feel too isolated working on their own all the time. So extremes tend never to be great solutions.
No. Well, what a great session. We're always getting great comments from the people that I know have got to jump off. Thank you so much to Sam, Asma, to Jackie, Dan for the data, Itty. All remains to say, I mean, we'll keep the conversation going, because I think this is so important, and that was the whole point of these sessions, was to keep them short and sweet, but let's keep meeting. We've got the all-in census running on March the 12th. Please take part. Please share the link in your networks. We'll be putting it out there in the next couple of weeks. It'll also be on the All-In Hub as well. It's how we get all of this incredibly valuable data. So please take part and encourage everyone you work with to do the same. And we didn't have a chance to get through all of the questions, but if you've got any that are burning in your mind, then please just email us and we'll get the response to you. But as I said, we'll follow up with the notes and see you very soon. But thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.